Hollow Knight lore to sleep to. The rise and fall of Hallownest. Long ago, a worm, a pale being born with the right to rule, graced these lands. It was through his power and grace that this land would come to be known as Hallownest. Bugs given thought would come to call this worm their king, and his kingdom their home. Grand cities would be built, and knights would fight for their liege. It was also by his greed and hubris that this land would crumble into a shell of itself, a hollow effigy of what once lied below the well. Thank you for joining me. My name is Austin, and tonight I will spin you the tale of the rise of Hallownest, an old forgotten kingdom that once was known for its glory and riches, and what led to its inevitable downfall. While you're here, please consider leaving a like on this video and spread this video to any other critters in need of a good night's sleep. Hallownest would be erected in a land already inhabited by many different bugs. The vast majority of these bugs would be without thought, without mind. To the east of this land, a grand pale worm would die, being reborn as the Pale King. The Pale King, driven by an instinct to lead, as with all worms, would drive his stake into this land and by his light grant intelligence and thought and mind to his subjects. Unfortunately, his rule would not be taken without a price, and previous rulers would be driven from their thrones to make way for the higher power of the king. The Mosskin of Greenpath, created from the being from a dream, would have part of their territory claimed by the White Lady, the being of which the Pale King would make his queen, becoming the Queen's Gardens. The Mantis Village would maintain their independence, but draw a truce with the king to keep the beast from Deepnest at bay. The Mushroom Tribe would accept the Pale King's rule over the fungal waste, as they believed the king's foresight would watch over and protect them. The Moth Tribe, worshipping the Radiance, would reject their old god for a new one, wiping the Radiance from Hallownest's memory. Consequences be damned. Hallownest would come to achieve great feats of art, masonry, architecture, and science, even a full economy based around a mineral known as geo. Though we never see it, the prime of Hallownest was likely filled with splendor, progress, and prosperity. Social classes would form, from nobles that lived in the grand city to the blue-collar workers that would repair signs and work the mines, knights that would defend the king and his land, and scholars who would keep the history of the land alive. Though the king's rule could not last forever, the Radiance refused to be forgotten, and through traces of its memories left in the kingdom would spread what would be called the infection. The Radiance would come to a bug in its sleep, inducing a coma-like state, and when the bug would wake, its thoughts would be its own no more. Orange pus-filled boils would cover the shell, and be a mindless feral beast. As the infection spread, the king would concoct a solution that would stain his hands in sin. The Pale King would first ask 3 of his allies to become dreamers, to slumber and seal away his vile creation. The king and his queen would have as many offspring as possible, enough to make counting a futile effort, discarding them into the abyss below Hallownest, where the void, a mysterious substance, would carve out the life form, their shells, and leave only a hollow form made of void and light. This sinful act would produce only one that the king would call worthy to be the Hollow Knight, and the king would raise him to be the peak of their potential form, with one caveat. The Hollow Knight must not think, must not feel, must not have a will of their own. It was required if the Hollow Knight was to sacrifice themselves, taking upon themselves the entire infection, sealing away the radiance inside of the black egg. This would, of course, be a temporary solution. The Hollow Knight, though being the chosen of the king, would falter. The radiance would once again begin to leak its infection unto the world, and begin the fall of the great kingdom of Hallownest. The king's knights would part ways, some perishing, some living secluded lives, as the great king would hide away he and his palace from Hallownest and from the world. The grand city would come to be known as the City of Tears, as the ceiling would become dilapidated, and the blue lake would begin to leak its content upon the chamber floor. The different tribes would be overcome by the infection and lose their minds, transforming the once great kingdom into a hostile land that only the bravest or most foolish, and sometimes both, would attempt to explore, whether to plunder its riches, record its history and geography, or in one small bug's case, armed with its old worn nail, discover a truth long buried.